Hello, let's talk about science instructional strategies. So I've included a few different things here in this section. The first two are links to, the ones are a link to a research-based article that talks about science instruction and instructional strategies, and then another article as well. And then I have a few videos. We're going to talk about universal design for learning. That is a part that you need to address on your lesson plans. So I wanted to make sure that you understood what it means when they ask for that. So I included a little video that kind of describes it. I've also included the website that has more information and suggestions for how to carry that out and how to utilize the framework. And then I've included a couple videos here just kind of demonstrating, instructional practices in action. Okay, so let's look at these together real quick. Again, so if I open this link here for effective K-12 science instruction, this was a document that was created by Texas A&M, where they researched effective K-12 science instruction and put this together. So it's nice because it gives you, there's 8 different categories that they have listed here for which they provide, suggestions for instructional strategies in science. But as you look through those, you can look through them all later on your own. I'm not going to read every single one of them to you. But what I wanted to point out here, though, is this section here. So an effective standards-based science curriculum provides an excellent and equitable science education for all students and provides for a deep understanding of essential science concepts. The National Science Education Standards state, the standards apply to all students, regardless of age, gender, cultural, or ethnic background, disabilities, aspirations, or interest and motivation in science. Different students will achieve understanding in different ways, and different students will achieve different degrees of depth and breadth of understanding depending on interest, ability, and context. But all students can develop the knowledge and skills described in the standards, even as some students go well beyond these levels. Educators are responsible for ensuring that all students achieve high levels of academic success. Realizing that individuals learn in a variety of ways, it is necessary to provide for student differences through the purposeful use of a variety of teaching strategies that nurture the diverse ways that students learn. Ideally, these strategies enhance student learning by stimulating active participation by all students, attending to the different ways students learn, providing opportunities for students to experience authentic scientific inquiry, providing challenges for all students, and providing opportunities for students to collaborate with others in diverse groups and settings. So while this document presents descriptions of research-based strategies that are effective in teaching K-12 science, it is important to recognize that not every strategy can or should be applied in every teaching situation. Instructional strategies are tools to be used in designing and implementing instruction in a way that supports and nurtures student learning. It is important to note that strategies may be used concurrently. For example, instructional technology strategies may be used to enhance the context for learning. Well-designed laboratory experiences incorporate a number of effective teaching and learning methodologies, including inquiry and manipulation strategies. A teacher's task is to determine what preconceptions and knowledge the students bring to the classroom, what concepts and skills they need to learn, and what support structures need to be provided in order for them to meet the learning goals. It is the role of the teacher to judiciously select from a variety of strategies and techniques those which will most effectively enable learners to develop deep understandings of the topics and meet the intended learning targets. So I just wanted to point that out because I think it's important to remember that there are a large variety of instructional strategies that you could use for effective instruction. But that's not to say that you need to use all of them or that you even will. It's really based on the needs of your students and meeting them where they're at. So hopefully you'll take a little time to read through this document and take a look at the suggested strategies that they have within here to try and incorporate them into your lessons. Okay. All right, heading back to the section. This next document actually starts off with listing best practices for all instruction. It's not really just focused on science. So it talks about all content areas and, again, research-based instructional practices. That kind of gives you a descriptor of those. I do like down here the quote they have: research cannot and does not identify the right or best way to teach, nor does it suggest certain instructional practices should always or should never be used. But research can illuminate which instructional practices are most likely to achieve desired results. So again, going back to your students' needs and meeting them where they're at will help you to determine which instructional strategies you would be using. On the second page here, they talk specifically about science. So they highlight some ways that you can effectively teach science in the classroom. I like over here about their qualities for best practices. So incorporates inquiry both as instructional strategy and as a skill to be learned. Inquiry is huge in science. Teaching students to question deeply is important. The second point there focuses the curriculum on state standards, benchmarks, and vertically aligned power outcomes. Connect science to other school subjects. So obviously we've already been talking about making interdisciplinary connections here, but that's huge. Because again, like, science is all around us, right? So making those real world connections, just demonstrating to students that, the world is science. All right, let's see. The next point here focuses on understanding, not acquisition of information. We kind of talked a little bit about that with the math standards, that, it's not about just memorizing facts or rote memorization, that there needs to be a depth of understanding, like recognizing why something happens, why something works. The next point includes opportunities for science discussion and debate. Being able to talk out how they arrived at certain conclusions, what their process was, is all important to science. The next point provides activities that investigate and analyze science questions over extended periods of time. It goes back to the questions there. And then finally applies results of experiments to scientific arguments and explanations. So really being able to share your reasoning. And that is connected to, we talked about within the standards, that there are writing standards for science, especially in the middle grades, and that's an important piece. All right, so I hope you'll look over this document on your own and take a look at those instructional practices. Next, we'll talk about universal design for learning. This is a component that is on your lesson plans that you need to fill in. This link here will actually take you to a video, which you can watch on your own, which gives you a description of it. And then there's also a website here that I posted for you to check out that offers some guidelines for universal design. In the video that you watch, you'll notice that they talk about the why, the what, and the how with meeting students' needs, and that basically everybody learns differently, right? And in trying to be able to meet the needs of your students, you sometimes have to be able to think about instructional practices that you would use to help all students. So not all kids need to learn the same way. So some kids might need to, listen to something being read, right? They can't just read it themselves. So they have a computer and they're listening to the same reading that the rest of the class is doing, but they have headphones on. Like that. It's no big deal if you establish a culture that we all learn differently, and that there's different ways for learning. It should be no big deal that students are doing different activities within your room, even though they're covering the same content. It's what works best for them. All right, so you can check out this website on your own. And then I have a couple videos here just of demonstrating tie-ins to science. So this video kind of talks about using current events to teach science, which I think is great. I love pulling in current events. Again, it makes that connection to the real world. I look for stuff all the time. There are different, like scholastic.com has magazines that you could order for your class that will connect current events to what you're covering in class, which is really nice. There's an example here of, again, interdisciplinary science. This video here kind of connects art into science, which is pretty cool. And then the only other thing that I wanted to point out as far as instruction goes, depending on what school you're teaching at, the curriculum may roll out in different ways. So for example, it may be that every grade level is, directly following the standards that, you're covering a life science unit and an earth space unit and a science, an engineering unit, throughout the year for that grade level. So it's broken up. You get a smattering of the science concepts throughout, right? I've seen other schools, though, that have also looked at the standards a little differently as far as the alignment goes. And instead of looking at it across grade levels, they look at it across content areas. So I've seen schools in which they've especially since that the PSSAs, students aren't tested for science on the PSSAs until 4th grade. It's only in 4th and 8th grade that happens. So it kind of gives some flexibility for how schools can go about meeting the standards. So they might choose to say, for example, like our 6th grade program is all life science. And then our 7th grade program, it focuses on earth and space. And then our 8th grade program focuses on the physical science. So that maybe instead of it being like a grade band sort of thing, that they're looking at it more as like a content area that they are covering one way or another. They're still meeting all of the standards by the time that, students have to take the test in 4th grade. And then again, by the time that they have to take it in 8th grade. I'm just mentioning it because you might find that even though the standards are laid out in a particular way, that sometimes schools choose different ways for going about meeting the standards. Okay? All right, if you have any questions about anything that's posted there, feel free to reach out to me. Have a great week.